Hello everyone and welcome to the next hybrid tutorial here on the Ducttapestuff channel. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make a duct tape lunchbox, and this is going to be a hybrid tutorial because we're going to be using something in between these sheets of tape to make the lunchbox to give your lunchbox a little more insulation than if you were just using duct tape. Now bear in mind you can use only duct tape if you really want to, but I would definitely recommend that you do use some insulation because duct tape does a pretty good job of insulating, but it's really not going to do as good a job as you could if you threw something in between the duct tape sheets. So for this tutorial I'm actually going to use aluminum foil, which most of you are going to have at home. You can also use newspaper. As long as you have some sort of thing in between the duct tape, it's going to insulate that much better. So the first thing we're going to do is, if you can imagine like a square lunchbox sitting here, with the walls and the lid, that's pretty much what we're going to make. And obviously we're going to start on working on the bottom piece of the lunchbox. So I have a sheet of aluminum foil here that's cut out to 9 inches long and 6.5 inches high. So that's going to be the measurements for the lunchbox we're going to make. Now bear in mind, if you want a smaller lunchbox or a longer, wider lunchbox, you can just make these, expand these measurements just a little bit, and you'll be making the lunchbox the same exact way. So let's get started here on our first step, which will be cutting out these strips, and then we'll be sticking them onto the sheet here. Alright, now since this sheet is already cut out to the exact dimensions that we need, all we need to do is take these strips and cut and stick them directly on top of this sheet here. So you're going to stick these strips on pretty much exactly the same way if you were making a regular duct tape sheet, except we're actually going to be sticking them directly on top of the aluminum foil. Now be careful if you are using aluminum foil, because number one, it might be a little bit difficult to get unstuck if you do stick it down incorrectly, but it can be also very sharp, because it is sometimes very easy to cut yourself on it. So you got your first thing there. We're going to take our second sheet or second strip here. And obviously, we're just going to overlap here just a little bit, and then just stick it down just like that. Take our third one, and you're just going to repeat this process over and over and over again until you have both sides of this sheet of aluminum foil covered, or newspaper if you decide to use newspaper. If you are using newspaper, I would say if you do stick it down incorrectly and try to rip it up, you're probably going to get a whole bunch of paper with it. So if you're using newspaper, just be real careful. So for this side, you're going to take one more sheet, and then you're just going to flip the whole thing over and do the exact same exact method. Just cut out those strips and stick them on the back here, and then we'll have the bottom of the lunchbox complete. So work on that step now. Alright, so this is what it looks like after we've gotten all the duct tape stuck onto the aluminum foil there. So that's what it's going to look like, and obviously that's going to be the bottom of the lunchbox. So now we're going to start working on the other pieces. Now, like I said before, I'm using aluminum foil for this tutorial, but bear in mind you can use newspaper, you can use aluminum foil like I'm using here. You can also use like the small little bubble wrap if you're fortunate to have this at home. This is just like those small little bubbles, and it comes usually like in a roll and stuff like that. And you can actually use this as your insulator as well, and it's probably work a lot better than anything else you have if you do happen to have some at home. Basically, if you had a whole sheet of this, you could just stick it down, and then you would basically just apply the tape the exact same way that you were applying it to the aluminum foil here, except you would be applying it to a sheet of bubble wrap as well. You might need to apply a little more tape if you are using the bubble wrap, just because the aluminum foil is a little bit more of a solid surface than the bubble wrap. The bubble wrap is kind of like, it's kind of flexible. It's probably going to move around a little bit more. So you definitely want to use a little more tape if you are using that. But if you are fortunate to have the bubble wrap at home, by all means give that a shot. You can also incorporate cardboard into this as well if you really want to. I'm talking about the really thick cardboard, but maybe like the thinner sheets that you can use. That would just give your lunchbox a little bit more sturdiness. It'll help it to keep its shape better if you're just using the aluminum foil and the tape. But like I said before, I'm just using the aluminum foil and the tape for this one. So let's continue on working on the sides, and then obviously the lid, which will come next. So let's get started on those steps right now. Alright, so if we're working on the front side and the back side first, that's going to fold up. We're actually going to use the same exact measurements that we did for the bottom here. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to make two more sheets just like this one that are exactly the same size. Now the left and right side are going to be a little slightly different measurements, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So basically your step now is you're going to make two more exact duplicates of this sheet right here. So you're going to cut out the aluminum foil if that's what you're using, and we're going to take, it took 4 strips on each side, so you're going to cut out about 16 more strips total, and then obviously 8 on each one, and we'll come up with 2 more exact duplicates of this sheet right here. So work on that step now. It's going to take you a little while, but just be careful. Make sure all your lines are just straight, as well as the aluminum foil will fit inside perfectly. So work on that step now. So once we've got our 3 identical sheets, we're going to make sure they are exactly the same. So do any little trimming if you need to on the sides, just to make sure they are all identical, as you can see here. So obviously we're going to take our bottom one here, and we're going to take one of them, put one of them aside for the meantime. We're going to take one strip of tape that's 9 inches long, obviously, and we are going to just lay the 2 right on top of each other, and you can probably guess what's coming. We're going to put half of it on this top sheet here, and then half of it on the surface that you're working on. Flip the whole thing over, make sure that it doesn't shift, and then we are going to just peel it back around and stick it down, just like that. So there we have, I guess, what's going to be the front here. So we have that front piece right there. Next what we're going to do is flip it over, and we're going to do what's going to become the back. So we're going to flip that forward like that. Lay this one directly on top in the middle here once again. And I have my other 9-inch strip kind of buried under here, but it's there. So make sure that's lined up once again. Half of it on this sheet, and then half of it on the surface that you're working on once again. Flip the whole thing over, make sure it doesn't shift, and then we're going to fold this part back around the back just like that. So there we basically have the front and back of our lunchbox here, if I can get it up. So there's the front and back of our lunchbox. Next we're obviously going to work on the sides. Now, with the measurements for the sides here are actually going to be fairly simple, because we take the obviously it's just the height and width of what is going to form as the box here. So we know that the width of it is going to be, according to my handy thing here, 6.5 inches, obviously, because that's how high it was. But we also need to know what the hold on one sec. Yeah, 6.5 inches, about that. Yeah, I'm confusing myself here. Hold on. So we know that the height is 6.5 inches, but we also need to know the width of it as well. And that's going to be, I'm using my ruler here. That's going to be 6.5 inches as well. Yeah, so we're actually going to make a sheet that's 6.5 inches by 6.5 inches for the size here. Confused myself a little bit there, but don't worry, it happens a lot. So we're going to start working on those sheets next, and we're going to attach these on the sides. Then we'll have all the sides of our lunchbox complete, and then we'll obviously work on one more piece, which is going to be the exact same measurements as these pieces here for the lid. So we'll work on that step now. So work on the sides, 6.5 by 6.5. Okay, sorry a little bit for the confusion there. I was kind of confusing myself a little bit, but we're basically going to make 2 sheets that are 6.5 inches wide by 6.5 inches high. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take some more of our foil here, and we're going to cut out just a section that's 6.5 by 6.5, and then we're going to cut out a whole bunch of strips and just stick those on just like I showed you. Now we are going to be making 2 of these, because obviously there are 2 sides, 2 ends of the lunchbox that we're going to be sticking these into. So make 2 of these sheets here that are 6.5 inches long by 6.5 inches high, and then we will have the sides complete. So work on those steps now, and then we'll attach them to the lunchbox right after we get all those cut out. So do that now. Alright, so once you have your 2 6.5 by 6.5 sheets done, we're going to attach them. So we're going to take one of them here. We're going to open our lunchbox here, which should open like this. And we're actually going to attach it to the middle here first. And it's obviously going to flip out this way. And then we'll attach it to one of the sides, and then I trust you can figure out the third side. So we're just going to attach it right here in the middle. I don't know if you figured out at this point, but the lunchbox does take a decent amount of duct tape to put together. So it is definitely one of those creations where it does take a little while. And I pulled one of my other sheets up with that, but that's okay. So we got our whole thing here. Flip the whole thing over. Make sure that it is lined up inside there. And you're going to fold this piece back around and stick it down on the back. So now we have this part of the lunchbox here. Basically what we're making is a giant box, more or less, and then we're obviously going to attach this side here. So to do that, I'm going to take my other strip here, which is 6.5 as well. Remember that since this is a square, it's 6.5 by 6.5, you can just cut out a whole bunch of strips that are the exact same size, and they will work for you. So about half of it on this piece here, and then we're going to stick half of it on this piece over here. This part's going to be a little bit difficult just because you're not really working on a solid piece. It's going to be slightly difficult, but you just want to line it up, make sure that it's straight up and down, and then just very slowly make sure that it's stuck down right here on the side. And it can kind of crease it together, make sure that it is stuck down. So you can use the tape itself to stick it down just like that. So there we have the one side completed. We're just going to take another 6.5 inch strip, stick it on the side here, and do the exact same part on that side. And then we're going to flip the whole thing over, obviously, and take your other 6.5 by 6.5 piece, stick it here, fold it this way, and we'll be attaching it exactly the same way. So do those steps now, and you should end up with a self-standing box, and then that will pretty much be the part of our lunchbox, and we'll work on the lid next. So after you completed those steps, we pretty much have a duct tape box, and that's pretty much what it's going to look like right here. It's funny because it looks a lot bigger on camera than it actually does in person just because I'm zoomed in, but this is pretty much what you're going to end up with. I remember someone asked me a while back for a tutorial on how to make a duct tape box. Well, this is pretty much exactly the same thing, minus the aluminum foil. Obviously, you wouldn't need that. But now we're going to work on the lid portion, which is going to flip over here, and I'll show you a really neat way of attaching that on here. Basically, we're going to use the exact same dimensions that we used before, because all these sides are exactly the same, as well as the opening here on the top. So we're going to cut out a whole bunch of strips that are 9 inches long and stick them together for a sheet that's 6.5 inches high, just like we did for this piece, the bottom as well as the back side here. So just cut out another piece of foil, aluminum foil, and then you're going to stick those strips on there and make another one of these pieces right here that you made earlier in the tutorial. So work on that now. I'll show you how to attach it and put a little Velcro on there, and hopefully we'll have our lunchbox as long as we put the strap on. So work on that step now, and we'll wrap this up. So once you get that sheet done for the lid, we're just going to take one more 9-inch strip and seal it off on the back here. So then we pretty much have our lunchbox. Now the trick here is going to be making sure that the top of the lunchbox seals pretty well. So to do that, I took a whole bunch of strips of tape and stuck a little bit of Velcro on here. So you can see I have 3 pieces there on each side. And I have a Velcro sticker, just a tiny little one on all 3 sides here. And basically, you know, once you stick it down here, you just stick in the sides and then the front here, and then it all just seals up just like that. But like I said, the trick is going to be making sure that it does seal correctly. So make sure however you do this, you make sure that this part here is somehow sealed down. You might use a little bit of tape, or you might use some more Velcro, or as long as you make sure that it does seal down here, it will create a better seal, and obviously you won't lose like all the refrigeration properties of your lunchbox. So you definitely want to make sure that you do somehow seal that down so that obviously you do keep all the refrigeration in. To do the strap, it's actually going to be really simple. I would recommend that you actually, instead of attaching it just simply to the sides, I would recommend that you cut a slit and then actually weave it through and then come on the inside and seal it on the inside as well. And that will give it a little more durability so that when you do attach it on the inside and the outside, it will be part of the actual core part of the lunchbox, and it won't probably just rip off. Now obviously for this part you'd have to go probably from this side to the back here rather than straight across, because obviously you have those there. To reinforce your lunchbox, I would probably throw some more strips in here facing this way, obviously one stuck to here and then to the bottom here, just to make sure that the bottom doesn't fall out, or as well as the sides, and make sure that it doesn't mess up or anything on that. So running a little bit short on time because the memory on the camera is running out, but that's pretty much how to make a duct tape lunchbox. So that's pretty much the end of this tutorial. Stay tuned, there will be more videos coming on the channel in the future, so take care, have fun making a duct tape lunchbox, leave any comments or anything if you need any help on it, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.